It is Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time to dive into a brand new universe with the guidance of the Watcher. This is my review for episode 6 of What If. This week, the Watcher takes us back to 2008 to Tony Stark in Afghanistan when his Humvee is attacked, but he is rescued by an American soldier named Killmonger. Before I start with my proper review, I want to let you know that there will be spoilers for the entire episode, so go watch it before you watch this review, or if you don't care about spoilers, or if you've already seen it, welcome to the review. And you know, unlike The Watcher, you can actually interfere and let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. What you liked, what you didn't like, start the conversation. It's always the most important part. And if this is the first video you're clicking from me, thank you so much. First of all, please do consider clicking the subscribe button, as you'll do wonders to get more content out there, and you'll always be aware of more What If coverage. This week I feel about What If kind of precisely the opposite as what I felt last week. Last week we had the zombies episode. As a premise, it was probably the least interesting premise to me, but they made a very interesting, compelling, and fun episode out of it. This week, they take a really fun, interesting, and compelling premise, and they do the most basic, mundane idea with it. The biggest problem I had with this week's episode is the issue I had with the first episode, the Captain Carter episode, but tenfold. It's an episode that changes scenarios, but the characters are essentially the same. Killmonger in this universe is no different than the Killmonger that we had in the Black Panther movie. Iron Man, Tony Stark in this film, he doesn't become Iron Man, he's essentially the same character he was in the first Iron Man movie without changing. Pepper Potts, Obadiah Stane, Happy Hogan, Ulysses Klaue, Black Panther himself, T'Challa. All these characters are here, but they essentially play the exact same role they play in the mainline universe, and that kind of goes against the premise. To the point when there's not much to talk about in the first half of this episode. Killmonger rescues Tony Stark, he becomes the COO of his company, he rats out Obadiah for having made up the plan to kill Tony Stark, he wants to create this army of sentient robots with vibranium that he presented a thesis in MIT. I believe he went to MIT, so kudos to Killmonger on that. And there's a really fun joke when Tony sees the designs of these robots, because Killmonger likes anime and Michael B. Jordan loves anime as well, so I appreciated that. But things only really pick up and start to do something different midway through the episode when we get Killmonger saying to Tony that they need more vibranium. There is a way to find more vibranium, and they arrange a meeting with Ulysses Klaue, but they need diplomatic immunity, so they use their diplomatic liaison in Rhodey. And what makes it interesting is the way this meeting goes wrong, because Black Panther T'Challa attacks because he knew this was all a ruse from Killmonger. Killmonger ends up killing him, killing Rhodey, and what's interesting is that Tony knows this. This was all a plan between Killmonger and Klaue. Again, the same dynamic we saw in the film, which again, it's interesting their plan. It's not interesting the characters having the same dynamic that they had before. And so Tony finds out and Killmonger kills him, generating a friction and therefore a war between Wakanda and the United States, where he is playing both sides. The thing I like about Killmonger, and it sucks that he's kind of essentially the same character, is that he's very smart in this episode. They show him being very strategic, thinking ahead of everyone else, and I think that makes him stand out as the great villain he was in the film. He continues to be here. And so Killmonger goes to Wakanda to ignite those fires of friction between Wakanda and the United States, and as the US sends in the drones he created, they generate the shield around Wakanda, and the drones go down, but for some reason, and I really didn't get this, he turns them on again because he can control them, and so war erupts, but they end up winning the war anyway. So what was the point of that. I love seeing Queen Ramonda in action, don't get me wrong. I love seeing Wakanda against this massive army of drones, and the action is great. The score that they use, the character cues for Black Panther, for Killmonger, all that is really great. It's just the story they decided to go with. It's just not interesting in execution. It's entertaining. It's not interesting. That's the best way to describe and to encapsulate what this episode of What If misses. There is one really cool scene after this battle where Killmonger becomes the Black Panther. He drinks from the purple flower, he goes into the realm of the ancestors, and is confronted by his cousin, by T'Challa. And they discuss their ideologies. Again, the most interesting part of the movie Black Panther, and it's exactly the same dynamic here. It's frustrating because character-wise, story-wise, thematically, is a beautiful scene. It's a very impactful moment, but I've seen it. I've seen this exact dynamic, I've seen these characters having these exact same ideas and beliefs, and nothing changed here. And throughout this episode, because this happens very much at the end of the story, Killmonger hasn't changed. He has clearly learned nothing from this journey, so what was the point of this journey? It's frustrating because it encapsulates everything that I had issues with in this episode. And that is, you have good ideas, and in execution, these characters absolutely are not changed by their journeys. And so they win this little battle, but war is still going on. The United States is eventually coming back, and Wakanda will be ready for when they come back. And then we see that Shuri has made her way to Pepper's office, and she has information on Killmonger having in fact killed Tony Stark, having in fact killed T'Challa and Rhodey, and having ignited this war between the United States and Wakanda. And this final scene right here, Shuri meeting Pepper, letting her know that knowledge, and having them both know what Killmonger actually did, and now trying to uncover that to bring him down and save both the US and Wakanda. That's the most interesting part of this episode. That is the story I want to see. I really like that Shuri is also younger in this. That's a very great piece of detail that they paid very close attention to, clearly. But I want to see this story, and clearly next week it's not going to be this story. This has got to be my least favorite episode of What If. This has got to be the bottom episode for me. I think it's entertaining. It's never unwatchable for any reason. It's perfectly fine half an hour of television. It's just not that good of a story. It's essentially the most basic idea, the first idea you would have if I asked you what would happen if Tony Stark was rescued by Killmonger. And this is that basic idea. Everyone would have this idea as the first idea to come to their mind. The characters are not changed that much by these events. Look at the rest of the episodes. Maybe they weren't all that good, but the journeys in those episodes essentially changed those characters from the ones we knew in the main universe, in the live action movies, to, yes, they're still the same people technically, but they were changed by their circumstances. Which is the entire purpose of this show. I'm giving What If Episode 6 a C. Again, I can't say this is a horrible episode or anything, it's just fine. Just there, it exists. None of these episodes affect each other, so I guess that's a good thing. But I want to know your thoughts. What did you think about this week's What If? Let me know what you thought about this week's episode. Throw it all down there in the comments below. The good, the bad, the ugly. Talk to me. Talk with each other. Thank you so much for watching. You are the best. And if you are still watching but still haven't clicked that subscribe button, make sure you do, because if you are still watching, you enjoyed it on some level. Thank you so much once more. I'll be back very soon with more content, and I hope to see you there. So until then, love each other and love the movies.